Parzival, Chapter 4, Under Curse. When Parzival saw that it was useless to plead with his cousin, he mounted the sorrel and spurred him to a gallop, wanting only to leave this cursed place of sickness and death. But the farther he rode, the more the grief he had left behind crowded the narrow spaces of his heart. No amends! How could that be? He had meant no wrong. Indeed, all he desired was to be a man of knightly honor and courtesy, to be a man of whom his wife, his mother, and his foster-father, Gurnemans, could be proud. And it had brought him only disaster. Bathed in perspiration, Parzival took off his helmet and slowed his sorrel to a trot. Suddenly he saw ahead of him in the road a sorry sight. It might once have been a horse, but now it was nothing but bones with skin stretched over them, and the skin itself was near worn through. He recalled the nag his mother had given him those days long ago when he was a raw and happy boy. Why, the old mare would look like a mighty war-horse compared to this wretched beast. Parzival had no warning that there were another horse and rider ahead. Now he saw why. Every bell had been ripped from the sad beast's saddle. Indeed, the saddle itself no longer fit the horse's poor swayed back. And more pitiful than the mount was the rider. It was a woman, but she wore no gown, only a tattered shift, belted with a piece of rope. When Parzival came alongside her, she looked at him with alarm and covered herself with her arms. "Go away and leave me alone," she said. "I saw you once before, and since that terrible day I have had nothing but misery on your account." "My lady," Parzival said, "whatever I have done or left undone since I have become a knight, no one could say that I have been unkind to a lady." "You are most unkind to me," she said. "You would have my ring and my brooch, and see what has become of me because of that." "Madam," Parzival said, recognizing the Duchess he had met on that day that he left home in search of Arthur's court, "let me cover you with my cloak, and then I will make amends for this wrong I did when I was but a foolish boy." "Leave me," she cried, "or my husband will return and kill us both." In fact, the jealous Duke Orelus had already heard of the sorrel's whinny and was returning to see who had met his wife along the path. Quickly, Parzival put on his helmet and spurred forward to meet the Duke. The poor Duchess was distraught. As much as Parzival had wronged her and her husband, had punished her unjustly, she did not wish either man to die on her account. It looked as though someone was sure to die, the fighting was so fierce. Part of the Duke's fury was his own guilt that he had left his wife unprotected that time before, when, as he thought, she had given a stranger her favors. Now he fought like the very dragons that adorned his shield. Parzival was his equal in fury, determined to make amends, at least for the childish behavior that had caused the Duchess so much humiliation and pain. They struck at each other with lance and sword, charging until both horses were in a lather, but neither man could unhorse the other. The Duke, in desperation, snatched hold of a buckle on Parzival's armor, but the strong young knight grabbed the Duke around the waist, hoisted him from the saddle, and hurled him through the air, as though he were a bundle of twigs. Parzival left off the sorrel and raced to where the Duke lay gasping upon the ground. "You have humiliated this good lady without a cause," Parzival cried. "If you will not restore her to favor and give her back her good name, I will not let you live." "I cannot do that," Duke Orelus replied. "She has given me too much grief, betraying me with some stranger in the woods." "Then you are lost." Parzival raised his sword. The Duke did not want to die, and said so. Parzival lowered his sword arm. "There is a lady in Arthur's court who has suffered humiliation on my account," he said. "Go there and say that the Red Knight has sent you to offer her your service." "That I will do, and gladly," the Duke answered. "But," said Parzival, "that is not all. I cannot let you go unless you repent of your wrong to this good lady your wife." When the Duke saw that Parzival would not relent, he swore finally that he would restore his wife to favor. Parzival let him stand and returned him his sword and lance. "Now that you have sworn," Parzival said, "I will tell you that this lady is completely innocent of any wrongdoing. I know, for I was that foolish youth. Here is the ring I took from her against her will. The brooch, I'm sorry to say, is gone. I gave it in payment to a greedy man. You, sir, have nothing to forgive. Your wife has never betrayed you. I only pray that she will forgive us both." This the good Duchess was glad to do. Her husband wept to think of the wrong his jealousy had caused. He gave her back her lovely garments, and procured a beautiful mare for her to ride, its saddle trimmed with hundreds of silver bells. Duke Orlus and his Duchess asked Parzival to go with them to Arthur's court, but he sadly refused. His cousin had told him that his failure at Wild Mountain stripped him of all knightly honor. How could such a one approach the noble Arthur? He bade the now happy Duke and Duchess farewell. And that's where we'll stop for a time.